Welcome back, everyone, to Ancient Mesopotamia, Portrait of a Dead Civilization. This is a summary of Elio Oppenheim's book, and we are in episode 24, coming close to the end. This week, we'll do 24, 25, and 26, and that'll be it. Today, we're going to be looking at medicine and physicians. So, an interesting topic, given the ideas of medicine in the ancient world. It's interesting to look at how they viewed medicine and the practice of it. So we're going to look at practical medicine compared to what would be considered quote-unquote scientific medicine, which is actually ironic, I think, and you'll see that when we get there. And then finally, the development of what I consider and Oppenheim considers unscientific science. So, practical medicine. This is the type of medicine that we would consider to be old, typical folk medicine. So using herbs, animal products, fat, blood, milk, bones, amongst other things, different types of minerals. These were things that were used practically to try to heal the individual, right? So, if you get on Google and you type in how to cure a cold, you might have a whole bunch of little remedies that people have that they suggest mixing honey with vinegar, and these are the types of folk medications that we're describing here. So they're actually geared toward a particular practical outcome, right? So if you drink honey when you have a sore throat, honey and tea, your throat feels better, and so this is a type of folk medication. So herbs were mixed with beer, vinegar, honey, etc. These medications could be swallowed. They could be introduced by suppositories or enemas, amongst other things. They could be applied as a lotion or a salve. At times, their use shows clearly that the qualities and effects of such herbs were known, and that's important. I think it's important to realize these people weren't morons, right? It's not that they were bumping around unaware of what was going on with their physical world, right? They knew that if we did X, Y would happen. And to a certain degree, they used these herbs for that reason. Unfortunately, there was another, as we're going to see, overriding consideration in their minds, this quote-unquote, what they consider to be this more scientific approach to medicine that overrode the idea and use of practical medicine. So, continuing the quote, all too often, however, their use seems to have been dictated by reasons other than positive knowledge. So we're going to see some examples of that here, in particular with scientific medicine. So what Oppenheim is saying is that even when they applied practical medicine, it wasn't always because they knew there was going to be a particular positive outcome when the herbs were used. It was always intermixed, or often intermixed, with this underlying idea of omena, the things that were behind, the magical aspects of medicine. So let's take a look at that. So scientific medicine. The symptoms were signs. They were signs for essentially the physician diviner, or the diviner physician, that indicated the course and outcome of the disease. And they were in this way functioning just like omens, right? So if X, then Y. This allowed the physician to perform the correct countermeasures. So when a particular disease, a particular symptom showed itself, they would be able to consult the lists, consult and identify what it is that symptom portended, and then they would be able to perform the correct ritual countermeasure to overcome the effect that was coming. They would do things like examine the body. They would do so to determine the temperature of the body, how the blood vessels appeared. They would check the pulse, but these things were not done in the sense that we would consider them, right? Temperature wasn't taken to say, the temperature is elevated, therefore the body is trying to overcome the disease by raising the temperature, or the blood vessels are appear in this way, and so this is what's going on inside of the body. These were signs, right? These were parts of omena that if the temperature went to this particular thing, it indicated that this was going to happen in the disease. The pulse was not taken to say, oh, the pulse is a little quicker, so this indicates this is going on in the body. It was another sign. It was a part of an omen that portended one thing or another. Signs indicated often whether the patient will live or die. So by the middle of the first millennium, there had been a shift away from this folk style of practice, medicinal practice, to the omen style scientific practice. So shifting away from actually using herbs to try to practically resolve diseases in a pragmatic way to really focusing in on these omen style driven medicinal practices. Oppenheim says it is sufficient to point to the shift in attitude which brought prestige to what we consider unscientific medical speculations, these omena, right? There's this shift that takes place, and the diviner physician is given prestige. He's given the more important place in society, particularly with the royal court, and this shifts away from the practitioner that used folk-style herbal treatments. And this is done, he says, to the detriment of a sober, although hardly very efficient, folk-type medicine based on whatever positive knowledge of plants and of the human body the experienced practitioner had been able to assemble and digest. In other words, they were the practical physician was on the way to determining in more and more sophisticated ways how medicinal substances interacted with the body to bring about positive results. And that progress was held in check by this unscientific science. This was something that interrupted the progress of practical medicine in ancient Mesopotamia. So, in summation, there were two types of physicians, practical and scientific. Practical doctors used herbs and other folk-style practices, while scientific physicians were essentially diviners, reading symptoms as signs. In the later period, scientific practices overshadowed practical medicine, which interrupted the development of medicinal practices in ancient Mesopotamia. On Wednesday, we're going to take a look at mathematics and astronomy. Until next time, resist poor scholarship. Always ask, how do you know that?